morning, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I am going to be discussing last night's action in which we saw the Milwaukee Bucks take on the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks face the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, there were some other games going on as well, but these are the two that were nationally televised, so they were the ones that I was able to watch. However, before I get too far into it, I want to remind you all to leave a like and subscribe. I've been appreciating all the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Without further ado, let's talk about the games. We'll start with the earlier of the two games, and that was obviously the Bucks-Celtics game. Now, I do need to say I'm a Bucks fan, and I was actually pretty happy with how this game went. I get it, we came out on the wrong end of things, but there were a lot of good signs in this game for both teams. The game started out with the Bucks taking advantage of some transition opportunities and taking an early lead. However, the Celtics would claw back in the second quarter, and we went into halftime with the Celtics having a 5-point lead. In the third quarter, the Celtics continued piling on the pain, and they were able to build up a double-digit lead that I believe reached as many as 17 points. But in the fourth quarter, the Bucks were able to chip away at the lead and eventually were able to regain the lead as at the very end of the game, with 10 seconds left, Jayson Tatum isolated against Giannis Antetokounmpo, and from there, you all know what happened. He knocked down a step-back three-pointer off the backboard. Then the Bucks went down and called the timeout, and with only 0.4 of a second left, they pretty much had to run a lob play where Giannis would tip it in, and they were fortunate enough to draw a foul on Tristan Thompson. However, the Bucks were down by 2 points, so Giannis would have had to make both free throws, and he made the first but missed the second, so the Celtics came away with a 1-point victory in what was probably the greatest game of the season up until that point. I can't say it still was the greatest game of the season because of some of the events that occurred in the Nuggets-Kings game later on, but obviously this is a terrific game. Jayson Tatum had a great second half for the Celtics. He actually struggled quite a bit in the first half, wasn't quite getting his shot to fall, but in the second half he really turned it up and was able to finish with 30 points and 7 rebounds on 12 for 28 shooting, 6 for 13 from 3. The efficiency numbers aren't great, but in the second half it felt like he just couldn't miss. He was knocking down those mid-range shots that he is so elite at getting to. He's great at finding his spot and knocking down the midi, and he also hit a few step-back three-pointers playing off of the mid-range. And overall, when he's just in a flow and in a rhythm, he's a super dangerous player because of just his pure scoring ability as a shooter. His partner in crime, Jaylen Brown, also had a terrific game. I think Brown was clearly the better of the two tonight, but because Tatum hit the game winner with less than a second left, he's going to get all of the recognition. But Jaylen Brown was consistently the best weapon for the Celtics offense. He finished with 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists on 13 for 24 shooting, 3 for 8 from 3, and 4 for 4 from the line. Brown just did a great job of knocking down three-pointers, obviously hit 3 of them, and that's really become such a big part of his game, his ability to shoot the 3 at a high level. And he also played off of it by attacking closeouts really well and getting to the basket, where he's become a really high-level finisher. He also played pretty solid defense, where he was matched up on some of the more challenging Bucks players for large portions of the night, whether it be Jrue Holiday or Chris Middleton, even Giannis at times. So a great game from Jaylen Brown. On the Bucks side of things, there were some really promising signs. The big three had terrific games. Giannis finished with 35 and 13 on 13 for 26 shooting, 3 for 8 from the three-point line, 6 for 8 from the free throw line. He did have 7 turnovers, which is a pretty huge negative. But when you take into consideration that 4 of those turnovers were dead ball offensive fouls, it's not as big of a deal, but it's still a wasted possession, and a lot of those were in opportunities where if you would have just been able to avoid the contact, you would have had a pretty easy finish at the rim. So that is something Giannis needs to improve at. Avoid the defender and avoid picking up those offensive fouls, because this game obviously didn't go into overtime, but had it gone to overtime, Giannis had 5 fouls, and that really would have put the Bucks at risk had he fouled out. So he's got to be more careful in those offensive foul situations. But outside of that, I thought he had a pretty solid game. His pull-up three-pointer looks really good. Obviously, that is the situation where he's taking the most threes because he's primarily an on-the-ball player. There's not too many possessions where Giannis doesn't have the ball in his hands. As Charles Barkley loves to point out, the Bucks offense is Giannis stands at the top of the key and scores. So I think that the progression in his three-point shot was promising, and up until the very last free throw, all of them looked pretty good. I think he was 6 for 7 before that last clunker, and the one that he missed was in and out, if I'm not mistaken. So a great game from Giannis. He was playing at an MVP level. He really kind of got off to a slow start, but in the fourth quarter, he just took over. I think about half of his points for the game came in that fourth quarter. So a really good game from Giannis, and I hope that he doesn't get too much hate for this because it's a free throw and it was under a lot of pressure, and there's not too many people in the world who can make that shot. So great game from Giannis. Jrue Holiday also had a terrific first game as a Buck, finished with 25 points and 6 rebounds, 10 for 16 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, 4 for 4 from the line. But that one three-pointer that he made was a step back with about 40 seconds left in the game, I believe. And it was a huge shot that put the Bucks up by a point. And for a while, it looked like it might have been the game winner up until Tatum obviously banked in the 3 with less than a second left. But Holiday was terrific on the defensive end, where he was really putting a lot of pressure on Marcus Smart, who really struggled in this game, didn't hit a shot from the field, although he was really good defensively, drawing all those charges from Giannis. But Holiday was also really good offensively, where he really just showcased his strength in the lane, where he's really able to finish at a high level despite being a smaller guy because of how strong he is. There was one time where he was taking it to the rim and he kind of just cleared out Daniel Tice, who is clearly a bigger, heavier guy than Jrue Holiday. So I was really impressed with Jrue, and I think that he is a huge addition for this Bucks team. The third member of the Bucks trio, Chris Middleton, also had a terrific game. Posted a double-double with 27 points and 14 rebounds, and came pretty close to a triple-double, as he also had 8 assists. Shot it 10 for 20 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and 4 for 4 from the line. A great game from Chris. Really just looked comfortable out there, really got into a flow where he was knocking down all kinds of shots off the dribble, whether it be face-ups, where he just is so good at taking advantage of guards. Every time he got either Peyton Pritchard or Jeff Teague switched onto him, he just went right after those mismatches and did a great job of converting in those opportunities. And also did a good job defensively on Jayson Tatum for much of the game prior to Tatum's hot streak in the third and fourth quarters. But really good game from Chris Middleton, and really the Bucks' big three as a whole. Jeff Teague was really what kept this Celtics team in the game for large portions before Tatum got going. He finished with 19 points on 7 for 15 shooting and 4 for 4 from the three-point line. Really just an impressive game from Jeff Teague. I think this might have been some bad karma from me because I hated on Jeff Teague quite a bit this offseason. I said that he was a very underwhelming signing for the Celtics, and they would have been better off keeping Brad Wanamaker, which does not look like a very good take at this point. And good for Jeff Teague for proving me wrong. He didn't do very well whatsoever defensively. Whoever he was guarding, the Bucks were pretty much able to take advantage of by manufacturing an easy shot. But he really looked good scoring the ball, and on a Celtics team that needs that scoring punch off the bench, that's all they could ask from him. Dante DiVincenzo had a huge first quarter from the Bucks, where he posted 13 well, I guess it was like a quarter and a half. He had 13 points on 5 for 5 shooting, 3 for 3 from the 3-point line. But after that, he cooled off and only scored one more basket. Was 1 for 6 for the rest of the game after that 5 for 5 start. But in those 18 minutes or whatever it was, Dante looked really promising. I've heard people speculating that he could be the most improved player, and obviously I'm a big Dante DiVincenzo fan. He's my favorite player in the whole NBA, and that would certainly get me quite excited if he were in the conversation to win that kind of award. And I think that watching him knock down those threes off of pull-up opportunities quite confidently in the flow of the offense was impressive to me. And I really hope that we can see this confidence continue for Dante and see him continue to play at a high level. The last thing to talk about here was the lack of production from the Bucks bench. I am quite nervous about this depth. It's worth pointing out that DJ Augustine did not play tonight, but like on the wing, Pat Connaughton, Bryn Forbes, I guess Sam Merrill got some time. None of these guys did a whole lot on the offensive end, and Bobby Portis as a big man was quite underwhelming, and DJ Wilson just still doesn't even look like he belongs on an NBA floor. So, this team is going to have to be quite aggressive in the buyout market if the reserves continue to look this bad. Overall, just a really exciting game, though, and congratulations to Celtics fans for getting that terrific 1-0 start. Moving on to the second game of the doubleheader, which was the Mavs and the Suns. We saw this game be pretty close from the get-go. It felt like the Suns were kind of always in control. Every once in a while, they would pull away a little bit and get the lead up to like 8 to 10 range, but the Mavs never let them pull away. They kept it close for the entire game, and in the end, the Suns were just able to come out on top because of some big shots that Chris Paul and Devin Booker hit towards the end of the game. I think the story of this game, though, was the brilliance of Luka Doncic despite being injured. When I saw him gimping around out there, I kind of just assumed that he was out of shape. You could certainly tell that something was wrong with him, and the fact that I assumed that he just was had poor conditioning stuff going on maybe what isn't great from me. But it turns out that he turned his ankle earlier in the game, and that led to some decreased mobility from him, but he still put up a terrific stat line with 32, 8, and 5 on 11 for 26 shooting, 11 for 12 from the free throw line, did not knock down a three-point shot as he was 0 for 6 from long range, but still a great game from Luka. He didn't quite look right, and the fact that he still put up 32 points is super encouraging for Mavs fans and super scary for the rest of the league. Devin Booker was the other young player in this matchup that was hyped up. This was always advertised as two of the best young scorers in the league face off. And I guess you could say Devin Booker won the matchup, but he really struggled quite a bit in the second half. He was quite good in the first half. I think he had like 15 of his 22 points in maybe even just like the first quarter, because he was really hot. He knocked down a bunch of shots right off the bat and really looked to be like that jumper dominant scorer that we know Devin Booker to be. But he cooled off for the rest of the game and finished with 22 and 5 on 8 for 15 shooting, 2 for 6 from 3 and 4 for 6 from the line. He also had 8 turnovers, which is a little bit scary if you are a Suns fan. You would hope that he would take better care of the ball than he did tonight. He was a bit careless. But certainly some encouraging signs as we saw him hit a few clutch jump shots towards the end of the game and really made a big one with like 35-ish seconds left, I believe. That really was the icing on the cake and secured the win for the Suns. Chris Paul didn't have a great first game in a Phoenix jersey as he finished with just 8 points on 3 for 9 shooting. But you can see where he's going to be impactful as he was really good in the scarce pick and roll opportunities he got with DeAndre Ayton. He Found Ayton a couple times with some nifty passes. Ayton was really limited though because of foul trouble. Picked up 3 fouls, or I guess 2 fouls right away off the bat. And then his backup, Damian Jones, came in and picked up 3 fouls. So then Ayton went back in and picked up his 3rd foul before the third quarter even ended. Or before the first quarter even ended. So both Suns big guys, both Suns centers, had 3 fouls by the end of the first quarter. So that led to increased minutes for their rookie big guy, Jalen Smith, and we didn't get to see as much of DeAndre Ayton as you might like to see, but he still put up some decent counting statistics with a 13-8 game on 5 for 9 shooting. But he's going to have to work on that foul tendency. It's not as scary as you would think because I know that at least 3 of his fouls, and maybe all 4 of them, were on the offensive end. But he's certainly going to have to be more careful and try to avoid foul trouble to keep himself on the court for longer stretches of time. I just really want to talk about Mchale Bridges. I'm a big fan of this kid. He looked terrific out there tonight. On the offensive end, he was knocking down his corner threes at a high level, finished with 18 and 7 on 5 for 11 shooting, 4 for 7 from 3, 4 for 4 from the line. He also showed a bit of an off-the-dribble game as we saw him attack some closeouts and get into the mid-range where he was able to knock down some 2-dribble jumpers, which looked really smooth. And he also did a terrific job on defense against Luka Doncic, which is one of the tougher asks in the entire NBA. But when he was matched up with Luka, it really limited what he could do. And I just really thought that Mchale Bridges was outstanding defensively, did a great job moving his feet and keeping Luka in front of him, used his long wingspan to prevent Luka from getting any pull-up jump shots off that, as we know, Luka loves to do. The only real problem I saw with Bridges' defense is that he really struggles to get around screens, and that probably has something to do with his really, really skinny frame. But if he can improve in that and make sure that he's able to stick on his matchup, because Luka really took advantage of the times where they would run a pick and roll and he was able to get DeAndre Ayton or Jalen Smith switched onto him. So if Bridges can improve on that screen, getting through screens defense, I guess we'll call it, then I really think that there's legit all NBA potential here, and I picked him to make that team this season. Or I guess all defense potential. I might have said all NBA before, but I meant the all defensive team. And I did predict him to make it this year. I just think that he's really good on that end, and his offense looked good today too. The bench for the Suns were also quite good. Cam Johnson had 15 points. Cam Payne and Langston Galloway had 11 points apiece. And I really think that played a huge part in getting this Suns team over the hump, as for large portions of the game, especially in the second half, as I said before, the 2 star guards in Devin Booker and Chris Paul were struggling to score. So to see other guys step up and carry that scoring load was a good sign for the Suns. For the Mavs, however, when Luka was struggling, the offense was a little bit dead in the water. They did not have a single other player with more than 12 points, but I think that they had 4 guys finish between 10 and 12. Tim Hardaway had 12. Josh Richardson had 12. Jalen Brunson had 12. Dorian Finney-Smith had 11, and maybe there's one more guy who had 10 points, but they're going to need someone to step up as a more consistent second option as long as Kristaps Porzingis is out. The guy I'd look to do that is Tim Hardaway, who was just 3 for 10 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the line tonight. They need more consistent and more efficient production out of him in order to win games against good teams, which I believe the Suns are. Really, there's no excuse for the Mavericks losing this game. The Suns turned the ball over 18 times. Their 3rd best player in DeAndre Ayton was limited to just 24 minutes because of foul trouble. And Chris Paul only had 8 points and really wasn't effective whatsoever. But because the Mavs struggled to generate offense outside of Luka, they just weren't able to win this game. Overall, the level of play just did not impress me for either team. I think that both these teams are much better than they showcased tonight, but neither looked particularly good. Of course, it was the first game of the season, and everyone is still learning what the year is going to look like, but not the best game for either team, and I certainly will be looking into future games for both squads before I read too much into how good I think that each can be in this season. Overall, we got 2 close games tonight, which is all that we can ask for. I was very much entertained, and we saw some terrific performances by guys like Jayson Tatum, Giannis, Jaylen Brown, Luka. And oh man, I just can't wait for the season. So tomorrow, I think this video, okay, so I'm recording this on Christmas Eve. So tomorrow's video that comes out on Christmas Day, Merry Christmas everybody, will be previewing the Christmas Day games, and I think I'm going to talk about one thing that I'm going to be watching out for in those games. So keep an eye out for that video tomorrow. Have a Merry Christmas and enjoy your time off from work or school. I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover, so I'll remind you all to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Other than that, I think that's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you all again very soon.